is the project-based TIFs. There were several areas, Becky, that we sort of deferred to finance on and allowed them to make this decision sort of. We've got a preliminary decision and then send it to them. And then one of the big things was the number of project-based TIFs. We essentially went from 15, no more than 15 over a 5-year period, and we changed that in finance to 10 with no more than 3 in any given year over a 5-year period. So why don't you just walk us through quickly what those amendments that finance has put on?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Becky Wasserman, Legislative Counsel. I can share my screen. There we go. So this is the finance amendment that was voted out last Friday. I think it's helpful to just give a little context before I go through the language that last year there was a bill making some amendments to the TIF district statute, so not the pilot program for projects. And that bill went through finance and I think did not get to the floor last year, but there were a number of sort of clarifying changes that were raised as a result of an auditor's report. So a lot of the changes in here in this version are addressing some of those issues that were raised last year and were passed out of this committee and finance. So again, this is the TIF districts. So the first amendment is in 32 VSA 5404A, which is one of the 2 statutory sections that deal with TIF districts. And scrolling down to page 2, there's a new subdivision that's added here that addresses a situation where a TIF district there's a municipality has a TIF district as well as a tax stabilization agreement. So this is saying, notwithstanding any other provision of law, if a municipality has both of these situations, entered into an agreement that reduces the municipality's education property tax liability under this chapter, and that's referring to a tax stabilization agreement, and has a TIF district, the municipality's municipal and education tax increment are calculated based on the assessed values of the property on the grand list and not the stabilized value.
Is everybody okay with that?
Sorry, Becky, I heard you say on the assessed values and not on the what value?
The stabilized value. So if you have a stabilization agreement, they're not going to assess what your education property tax increment is on that lowered stabilized amount. They're going to assess it on the grand list value for the purpose of the TIF district.
Thanks.
So can I just make sure I understand, does that now apply to TIF districts and the new project-based?
No, this is just for TIF districts.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
In subsection F of the statutory section, I had to do a strike all of this section. This is just repeating what was in your bill as voted out of your committee, cleaning up this language, referencing the number of TIF districts that can be approved in the future. So if you see on the top of page 3, line 1, there was approval available for 6 more districts, and the statute had to be cleaned up because Montpelier and Bennington had since approved districts. So now this is referencing that there are 4 more available TIF districts in the state under the statute. And so that is referenced on line 1 and again on line 13. And lines 17 to 18 are saying that because this limit says that there's no more than 2 per district, because Montpelier and Bennington have received TIF districts, it's clarifying that there's not more than 1 district in Bennington and Washington counties. And this was language that was in your version of the bill. The subdivision 4 that is added is addressing a situation where in a TIF district, again, so this is just TIF districts, if property in the district decreases in comparison to the original taxable value, which is the amount that it was set at when the district was created, that a municipality still has to pay the amount equal to that original taxable value to the education fund. So they don't get to pay less just because there's a decrease in the property value. So it says that in any year that the assessed value of real property in a district decreases in comparison to this original taxable value, a municipality shall pay the amount equal to the tax calculated based on the original taxable value to the ed fund. Any questions on that?
That seems like a big deal. So I'm just, what I'm wondering is, what if you went from a building that you wanted to tear down to, say, a hole in the ground? Does that decrease the assessed value and then you owe money while you're kind of in the middle of a construction project?
That is what it's saying, yes.
Michael, sorry, Mr. Chair, is there sort of a, maybe I'm just looking for others to see if this is like something the Senate's discussed really recently.
No, we haven't discussed it. When you begin with one value that may be low, but it exists, and then you destroy it completely, with the hopes, of course, this is the whole point of the TIF program, is that with the hopes that we will have a greater assessed value when the project is built. But yeah, it's an interesting challenge. But that is the expectation with TIF, is that you have the frozen value of where you begin of that property, and yikes, whatever you do to it in between, you don't, it's
so yeah, maybe this is clarifying that in the future you owe the increment based on the original value,
right?
And not depression in value. But they're not, when it says a municipality should pay the amount, I'm thinking right away. You're saying in the future? I just don't.
No, this is each year they have to pay an amount to the education fund.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't recall the specifics of what was in the auditor's report, but I think that it was not clear for some municipalities what needed, if this comes up, what needed to be done. And so this is just clarifying in the law that this sort of is the intent when your property values decrease.
That the intent is that it's frozen at the original value.
Okay.
The original value.
So in some ways, the plus of this is that it keeps the fire under the feet of everybody to get the project built. I mean, because you're paying on that original, albeit probably very low, property tax rate. And if in fact the project requires the demolition of the building with the hopes of reconstructing something fabulous that will have a much higher tax rate in 20 years, that's the bet you make, is that you know, and it keeps your toes to the fire in getting the project done so that you can get to that taxable opportunity in 20 years. I mean,
yeah,
so
Mr. Chair,
there would be fewer extensions.
I just I would personally need more information, like what examples we have, to be comfortable if someone asks me follow-up questions as the reporter of the underlying bill about this section. But if someone from finance is prepared to speak to this piece, I'll just
the way this will work is these are all finance amendments that we had dealt with. We actually dealt with them in this committee and in finance last year, but the bill died in appropriation. So the decision in finance was to put those clarifying amendments in this bill, and Ann Cummings will be getting up on the floor and explaining these amendments and defending these amendments. They don't really impact directly the project-based TIF part of the bill. Is that correct, Becky?
Yeah, this is the finance amendment, so they would be reporting on this amendment.
But we have to take a position of whether we agree with what finance does. And I don't mean to in any way shortchange your need to understand this, only to give you comfort that this is something that finance and I think economic development did last year. This protects the ed fund in some ways to make sure that the original value, which the ed fund keeps entirely and the municipality keeps entirely, doesn't go down as a result of this. So, we
And
can
this-
continue.
Right. That's the sort of whole basic premise of TIF is that the ed fund contribution is steady at that frozen rate until it's has a new rate in
Right.
which
Would
is
this all, sorry.
substantially higher.
And would this also apply to the project-based?
This
Okay.
would not apply. This
Okay.
is not applicable to that. And I can confirm that this committee and finance did see this language in another
Okay.
bill last biennium.
Okay.
And page 4, I know Senator Ballant loved this language last year. On brownfields, there's a project criteria that allows for 3 out of 5 criteria have to be met for a TIF district. And in the case of a brownfield, VEPC is authorized to adopt rules pursuant to their rulemaking authority to remediate and stimulate the development or redevelopment of the district. And I think this situation had to deal with some dirt in St. Albans that was not stabilizing dirt or something like that. So they needed to clarify how to deal with brownfield improvements. Okay. The next instance of amendment is just making some sort of turning back to the project TIF project language and the pilot program, just making some clarifying changes here. In the first instance, there was an error in the language that in the definition of coordinating agency, it referred to TIF district instead of project. So I cleaned that up by on line 2, it says by striking out district and inserting project. So that's what that is referencing there. And then Senate Finance changed the structure of the pilot program a little bit in subsection B by, so it's a 5-year program, January 1st, 2022 to the end of December 2026. There's a total of not more than 10 projects rather than 15, and not more than 3 per year. And there can't be more than 1 per municipality.
So they just wanted to pull back the program a little bit in its pilot.
Yeah, so they decreased the number of projects from 15 to 10 and put some framing around it that it had to be no more than 3 projects per year.
So we had not created the annual limit before.
No, that's finance.
Yeah, and I think practically there's some politics in this, but in practically speaking, Megan told us that this would be a really good rollout as opposed to them getting potentially bombarded with 15 in the first 2 years. She would like to see it staggered. So last year, I think we went into finance with something similar, and we came out with something much worse, which was 6 over 3 years or something. So, yep, that's Senator Brock and I made this, raised this issue, and the chair was, she's very concerned about what the Appropriation and Ways and Means Committee will think about this. And so we're looking at, one of the things we've gotten here is we kept the $5 million cap. So we're looking at, potentially $50 million of new TIF project-based programs. So,
And just to clarify, now there's no more than 2 per county and 1 per municipality. That can happen.
that's changed, right, from what we passed?
The 2 per county, sorry, is for the TIF districts, not the
Okay.
projects.
Okay, so, but we hadn't really had 1 per municipality, or had we? I mean, I don't
You
think.
did have what, you had not more than 1 project
Okay.
per municipality. You didn't have the amount that could be approved within a year.
Got it. Okay.
Okay, so the next amendment, we're going, the third instance of amendment, we're going back to the TIF districts, to Title 24, which is the other section, the other chapter where TIF district language is. The next 2 changes are, you did hear about this in your committee with respect to the projects. It is changing the definition of improvement for TIF districts to allow funding of debt service interest payments for a period of up to 5 years, beginning on the date in which the first debt is incurred. This is something you had in the definition of the TIF project improvement. And so this is being added for the TIF districts now. And then the same thing with the financing definition in the TIF district statute. It is allowing for the bond anticipation notes to be used during the 5th and 10th years that a district can incur debt, but that they have to incur all permanent financing not more than 1 year after issuing the bond anticipation note. So this is the same language for the that you saw with the TIF projects. And then the last instance of amendment deals with the boundaries of a TIF district. So I think this was an issue that was raised in the auditor's report as well, that clarifying that any parcel that's in a district has to be wholly within the boundaries of a district. So the district boundaries can't bisect a parcel, and that there's no adjustments to those boundaries after a TIF district plan has been approved.
Okay. Thank you, Becky.
Can I ask, so did we not deal with this 6 to 5 year piece?
Yeah, that was dealt with.
Okay.
So sorry, scrolling might make everyone dizzy. Page 5,
Okay.
lines 6 and 7. So it is the error that was made was changed. So my error was that I had it January 1st, 2022 to December 31st, 2027 when it came out of your committee, but you all had voted to actually have it 2026. So in this version of in the Senate Finance Amendment, I've corrected that.
Okay. Can I just get some guidance from the committee? Should I change the language of my report to say a 5-year program throughout instead of a 6-year? Because it is.
In terms of your report on the floor?
Yes, it currently says 6-year to be accurate. the amendment changes it to 5 years, but I don't want to confuse people unnecessarily.
No, you
I
should,
would-
you
I
should
would-
either say 5 years, or you should explain that it was a drafting error that had it at 6 in the version that came out, and it's being fixed in the finance amendment.
Okay, I can do that. That's pretty straightforward.
Okay, so Senator Brock has told me he's voting in favor of this. We'll hold the vote open for him, but I'd like to get a motion and show of hands that our committee supports the amendment that will be proposed by the Finance Committee. So, all those in favor of draft 1.2 of S33 amendments proposed by the Finance Committee, please just raise your hands.
Can you see us?
I can see everybody except Keisha.
Oh, yes, I'm a yes.
All right, and we'll hold that open. Well, we don't even, I'll get Senator Brock's. It's not like we're reporting anything. It's just that Keisha or I will stand up on the floor and say we reviewed these amendments and we support them.
Mhm.
Becky, can we stop screen sharing so we can see everybody a little bit? Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. So now, I don't know, I had invited on short order Craig Bolio to come before us, but he said he was available for a while, but I don't see him in the room. And if he's not here, we'll move on to S101. S101, we were about to vote on that, and then Senator Ballin had a concern, which I think has been answered. Could you walk us through your concern, Senator Ballin? And
I
Nancy-
actually had a long talk with the chair of Senate Natural this weekend, and I'm good to vote on it. So I just needed a little bit more time for him to get his ducks in a row. I think my concern has always been making sure that when we get to the floor, that committee is going to be answering all the particular questions about the hookups, as it's not our wheelhouse. And but I feel satisfied at this point.
Okay, so I guess we should pull up, this would be Ellen's bill. She's probably not with us, but could we all pull up? Nathan, could you pull up the last version of S33? I think we dealt with it on Friday. And we can proceed to the vote at this point.
Sure, just give me 1 second.
Sorry, Michael, I missed the beginning of your sentence.
I'm sorry. We're going to pull up the last version on S101,
Right.
and we're going to proceed to a vote. We had paused the vote because Senator Ballin had a legitimate question, and she worked it out with, and I'm pretty sure, I can't put my finger on it, but Chris Bray sent us all an email answering her question, and
Yeah.
so she's satisfied with the answer. So we're going back to voting the bill at this point, and Nathan's going to put it up on the screen for us.
Can you see the bill?
Yep. Yes, we can.
Do you need it any larger?
Oh, it's always nice larger. Is it on our website as well?
It is also on the website. It's the
Okay.
as recommended version.
Yeah, thanks.
Scroll down so people can just sort of refresh their memory. This is, all we're dealing with here is the amendment that's going to be proposed on the floor by Senate Natural Resources. What's the date on this here? I want to make sure we have the right amendment.
It was March 8th, I think.
That doesn't sound right to me. That's the last
It's a long time ago.
That's the last amendment you have. I know we were about to vote on something. Can you tell from the history there, Nathan, whether this is what we were about to vote on Friday?
I'll I'll do some deep diving to see.
I know it exclusively dealt with the hookup issue, but I just want to make sure we have it right.
So the document that was posted that is dated to Friday, March 12th. Previous to that, there was the wastewater permanent amendment from March 10th.
Yeah, but we were dealing with something like March 19th, weren't we? When the last time we talked about this was Friday. So you see nothing on March 19th. Dealing
I
with
did not receive the amendment from Senator Bray.
Okay. I think what we should do is, Nathan, can you track this down by talking to your counterpart in Senate Natural Resources and maybe also Senator Bray and Ellen to see that
Yes.
we have the right amendment we're dealing with here? And in the meantime, we'll move on to S79 unless Craig Bolio is with us. And I've seen some emails going back and forth on H315, so I don't know if
Yeah, so Michael, I did get a message from Senator Cummings, and she said that finance did agree to extend the tax link deadline until the end of March at the request of Commissioner Bolio. The impression that she had was that the link had been added, that the link up had been added, and that the committee finance, you guys assented to the deal. She also thought the link was in the miscellaneous tax bill where it usually resides. So trying to track that down on my end now. And
yeah, so what I could say to that is, yeah, I don't know when we're going to get to the miscellaneous tax bill. The commissioner seemed to have a sense of urgency, and I know we linked up
right,
the PPP program, which is very similar in terms of non-taxability for 2020. And like Senator Cummings, I thought it was being taken care of and had been taken care of in 315, but it sounds like either no one pushed that issue with appropriations, and Jane says, we need to
I mean,
track it down because we could lose a couple of months, which is going to make things even more crazy for the
Yep.
tax. Yep. All right. So let's move on to H79, and maybe hopefully we can come back to 101. Senator Clarkson, do you want to tell us?
Well, is David Hall here at all or not?
Who?
Was David joining us?
Could be, I don't know.
The draft that we have is from the 17th of March. That's the latest draft we have. We have Sean Gilpin here. There's David Hall. And this, as you'll recall, is an amendment which clarifies that these are competitive grants, that they will, that the department will set up statewide standards for the VHIP program, and that it will be that an award process will be subject to a housing organization's exercise of discretion. As we discussed last time, that was important. And also that the identity of a recipient and the amount of the grant or forgivable loan are public records. So that is directly reflects the discussion that we had. And correct me, David and Sean, if I'm wrong on that. And then the third, the additional piece on VHIP, I don't understand quite as fully because I'm not a lien expert. I wish I was leaner, but I'm not a lien expert. Anyway, after COVID, lien takes on a whole new meaning. So the last piece on the VHIP amendment is that the first mortgage on the property that is refinanced and recorded after the lien for rehabilitation and weatherization of the rental housing unit is filed in the land records.
Okay,
So-
why don't we let David briefly walk us through, just to get us grounded here, what we're dealing with.
Oh, I'm
is-
sorry. I thought I had done that. Okay. Anyway,
No, I want
and the
to-
last piece is just the report back to us in January, next January.
did a great job, and making David's work a lot easier. But I want him to pull up the bill and walk through. What we're doing here is we're amending our own bill with a floor amendment, because we sort of ran out of time to take further testimony before crossover. So we just need to get approval by this committee of this amendment. So David, can you just, knowing that Senator Clarkson did most of your lifting, could you pull up the bill and have people look at it and walk through it?
Yes, I can do that.
And speaking of amendments, Becca, did you have a chance to look at the my email to Jane?
I haven't, because I've been dealing with Commissioner Bolio, who just said he's happy to hop on. Just have Nathan send him the link.
Okay. We're going to come back to this. We're scheduled to come back to this for a few minutes after the floor. So let's get Senator Commissioner Bolio on now, if we can.
I think that's a good idea.
Carpe diem. Sorry, Sean and David.
Quite all right. You're expecting me back at 11, is that?
We don't know. I would say that's a good, as good as any stopping point.
Sorry, Sean. The timing is a little challenging when we're on the floor, but we should be done hopefully by 11.
All right, I will keep an ear out and plan to join you back again.
And maybe Nathan would be kind enough to give you a heads up when we're off the floor.
I can do that.
Thank you, Nathan. If you could do that for David and Sean, that would be wonderful.
I did send Commissioner Bolio the Zoom link.
As you all know, everything takes 3 times as long, and I just appreciate how much everyone is trying to follow all the email threads. This environment is so challenging.
It's
The number of fires I was putting out yesterday are trying to reach the point of absurdity. So
yeah, and it's in large measure because there's none of that informal checking in with how people are as the day progresses on something.
yes, and people, there's so many. The volume of emails, as Senator Rahm and I have talked about, is so enormous right now that you can't even remember when the last bit was that you saw. Have you read the most up-to-date message? So hopefully Commissioner Bolio can join us and we can try to get clear on this. If not, we can pass over H315 today and take it up tomorrow. I want to make sure we get this clear, that we know where the language is.
Thank you. Is he, let me see, I don't see him yet. You sent him the link, but he's not here yet?
That is correct.
Okay. Any update on 101? We could dispense with that real quickly.
I have not heard anything.
Okay. Okay. Well, look, it's 9:21. David Hall left us. So
David's here.
oh, there he is. All right, David, let's give it a try and see if Craig Bolio appears, and we'll just we could at least go through this language on 79 while we're waiting for him.
So are you all seeing S79?
Yep.
Great.
Oh, we're back to 79? Oh, okay. Great. Yep, there we are.
The changes are highlighted, obviously, relative to the version that you voted out in the original S79 committee amendment. So in line 12, adding the word competitive, lines 15 through 17. This goes to that concept you had discussed about having statewide standards that are governing the program. And also the second piece, the concept of factors that these housing partner organizations could use when they're evaluating the applications, so that they have some clear, demonstrable discretion based on the statewide factors if they pick and choose applications among multiple applicants. Similarly, on the next page, lines 11 and 12, subject to the housing organization's exercise of discretion based on those factors adopted by the department. On page 3, subdivision 6 is new, and it just makes explicit that both the identity of the recipient and the amount of the grant or loan are public records. And that's the typical Public Records Act language, public records available for public copying and inspection. That's the sort of the standard in the Public Records Act. On page 4 of 5, no change there. 5 of 5, the restatement in G2, just to clarify that we're referring to a first mortgage that is refinanced and recorded after the state's lien. So priority would stay with the first mortgage, even if it's refinanced. But if, for instance, an owner got a first and then a grant or a loan, and then went and got a second mortgage, that second mortgage would not receive statutory priority over the state's position. Just first mortgages, whether original or refinanced. And I did check that language with Chris Delia. He said he's okay with it.
Okay.
And then 9A is the report you requested specific to this program, including any findings and recommendations related to the amount of the grant awards. And I see the commissioners here.
I just have one question to ponder before we go over to Commissioner, is that I thought we had agreed that the grants, awards, and the amounts would be made public in a consolidated report each year, as opposed to people having to go to either the agency or to the individual.
I don't recall reporting it. I just recall that we wanted to make sure they were public and available if people wanted to find them.
Okay, so I want to talk about that issue when we get back. Okay, so let's move over to Commissioner Bolio. We've got five minutes, Commissioner. Things have been very rapidly happening here. Could you just give us the
Thank you, David.
the importance of, you're muted, the importance of doing the link up for unemployment benefits sooner rather than later? There's been some talk about waiting to the miscellaneous tax bill and talking about it then, as opposed to this going to go to the governor pretty soon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Craig Bolio, Tax Commissioner. I don't know if I necessarily care how quickly it gets to the governor, as long as we agree on the direction that we're going to take. The challenge that we face right now is that the language in H315 does not cover the UI provision. So the American Rescue Plan was passed in March of 2021. The link up language that we pass every year in Vermont only links up through the end of December. So that language would need to be changed in order to capture this UI exclusion provision. I had testified on this previously in Senate Finance, and I think there had been some confusion because I think Senate Finance had agreed to recommend that to Senate Appropriations, but I don't think that that change ever got made. And I'm not, at this point, I'm not sure where it stands if folks want to make the change. Certainly I'm advocating for making that change. Decoupling at this stage, harms those people that have already been kicked by COVID-19 because they've lost their jobs, thousands of whom have still not been able to return to work. And it would be an unprecedented effort for my department to try to change something at this point in the tax season. We would be shutting down tax season and stopping processing refunds to try to make this change. We'd probably also be talking about billing thousands of UI recipients after the tax season for taxes that would be owed because of this.
So I just want to challenge a little bit your comfort level in terms of saying, as long as you get direction, you can tell the tax preparers and tax filers that you're going to link up. But then if the legislature in its wisdom decides it doesn't want to do that, and you give them one message out, and then in April, you're going to give another message out, it would be even worse, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I suppose if the worry is that the legislature would agree to this language and then change their mind, then absolutely, I'd like it in law as soon as possible. I mean, the easiest path on this is a bill that just has that link up language sailing through. I don't know if there's an appetite to do that. You know, I know H315 is going to have to go back to the House, and I don't know how long discussions on that will take. From my chair, focused on this one element, I'd love a bill that just has this element and go through.
Well,
Okay.
and
Right now, there is no bill that has this element in it. Are you telling people based upon what finance told you that they should consider the link up as happening?
No, no, because it wasn't changed in 315 yet. So our advice on the website and what we've been telling taxpayers is we don't know. We're hopeful that the link up will happen, but we can't answer that question. Okay. It's not within my authority.
Okay, we're gonna have to go. It's 9:30. I think I've seen some emails that this may be passed over today, so you may be in somebody's witness seat later in the day.
Yeah, I think we need to link up. I think we're getting lots of requests about linking up. So I mean, we're hearing from tax preparer. I've got 2 messages in the last couple of days about.
Can I ask really quickly, would the same link up language apply to the filing deadline being extended? Or does
that's automatically, that's already in law. Yeah.
That always happens. That's
We have done the link up for the PPP program in 315, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. That would cover it, the language in there.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, I've got to get to the floor, but I'm going to recommend that I have Carolyn send out an invite to you and Ann and Jane for right after the floor for us to get clear on how we want to deal with this. Okay?
Sounds good, Pro Tem.
right. Okay.